Yesterday in the comments I got told that I looked like Dom DeLuise's son. And I just got one thing to say about that. Thank you. Welcome to another episode of Lombardi Time Brews. I am your host, John Del Rey. Today we are looking at the top 5 things to watch for as the Packers play the Minnesota Vikings this coming Sunday in Minnesota. But before we totally dive into that, please hit like, hit share, hit subscribe, hit all the buttons, and spread around the show that is Lombardi Time Brews. Just a couple very quick updates for you. Regarding practice today, what LaFleur had to say even after practice. Originally, I thought I was going to get this video out this morning because I had a doctor's appointment this afternoon, but kind of worked out that this is actually going to be a later episode. I was able to hear the update from LaFleur, see the initial reaction to what's going on with the injuries. And really, here's what we got going on. Allen Lazard is going to be doubtful for Sunday. Sat out practice today. I got to be honest, it really doesn't look good for him. I think if he doesn't go on Sunday, the likelihood that Juwan Winfree is activated goes up exponentially. I think it was going to happen anyway, but now seems like a foregone conclusion that Winfree would be playing. I think we see more Christian Watson, more Romeo Doubs, perhaps more Aaron Jones as serving as a split-out wide receiver. It happens rare that they do that, but I could see it happening on Sunday. Sammy Watkins is going to have to be his usual week 1 self. So, just, the real concern here with Lazard missing time is it's like everyone has to elevate one level. And at this point in the season, week 1, can you bank on that happening? We'll find out. We will see, but his injury is what I would consider the most concerning for Sunday. And really good news, though, Mason Crosby, Robert Tonyan, they are both officially back. No injuries designations for either one means Mason will be kicking on Sunday, and Robert Tonyan is fully back from his ACL tear. Speaking of ACL tears, we've got 2 of them on the offensive line that have been rehabbing for a while. One is Elton Jenkins. He's officially questionable for Sunday. I will say his chances, because he participated in practice today, look pretty good. The flip side, left tackle David Bakhtiari. Bakhtiari, we know his story. Several surgeries. Rehabbing for 20 months now. Participated in practice this week up until today. And when the news originally broke that he was not practicing today, holy goodness, were there heart attacks out there in Packer Twitter land. But LaFleur said afterwards that David Bakhtiari is a vet. He doesn't necessarily need to participate in a Friday practice to play on Sunday. It's entirely possible that he's not going to play on Sunday if the doctors decide that that's best. That is not an omen that David Bakhtiari is never playing again. Or that if he misses week 1, it means that he's not going to be in again until week 10, like I saw someone prognosticating on Twitter. Ultimately, we don't know. We just don't. The Packers may not know. This is complicated and tricky, and everyone's bodies are different, and we've seen this with Bakhtiari. So, what we do is we wait, and we hope, and we wish for the best. And hopefully he'll be out there on Sunday. As I get into the 5 things about the Packers versus Vikings today, we're going to see. We could really use those tackles on Sunday. But if not, it means Yash steps in, next man up. I have a lot more faith in the offensive line shuffling and moving one man up than I do the wide receivers at this moment. So, if Bakhtiari can't go on Sunday, we'll see what that means. No reason to panic and no reason to elaborate on doomsday scenarios at this point. He may very well play. He may not. It'll be okay. So I want to dive right in. Here are the 5 things that I'm looking for most in the Packer-Viking game coming up on Sunday. Before I do that, though, super quick, just recap for you about what the Vikings offseason was. Obviously, if you're watching this, you probably know all about the Packers offseason. But the Vikings are actually a team in flux. They have undergone a lot of changes this offseason that's going to determine not just this year, but the future of the direction of the franchise. And I feel like that's gotten missed a lot, especially by people who are saying that the Vikings are going to take the division from the Packers. The Vikings are undergoing a schematic change on defense. They have a new GM, new head coach, lots of change. And so we'll see. But here's a quick recap. First of all, Kevin O'Connell, brought over from the Rams. He is the new head coach for the Vikings. This one, I really hope I say it correctly, but Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is their brand new GM. Assistant coaches, I felt the need to make note of this. Outside linebacker and pass rush specialist coach, Mike Smith. Former Green Bay Packer outside linebacker coach, Mike Smith. And then another familiar face, their assistant head coach, Mike Pettin. Former Packer defensive coordinator Mike Pettin finding a home with Mike Smith in Minnesota. In terms of additional players that they have now, they signed Harrison Phillips, the defensive tackle from Buffalo. They signed former Green Bay Packer Chandon Sullivan to be a nickel corner. They signed Jordan Hicks, the middle linebacker. They traded for Ross Blacklock, the defensive tackle from Houston. They traded for Jalen Reagor, the wide receiver from Philadelphia. And then they signed Zadarius Smith, like we've talked about. So those are some new additions, but they did lose a number of guys that kind of offset some of those additions. One of them being Tyler Conklin, the tight end. So Irv Smith, who was hurt for most of last year, he now becomes their starting tight end as Conklin is gone. Xavier Woods, who played in their secondary last year, he's gone. Anthony Barr, the stalwart for them at outside linebacker for years, he's gone. He signed in Dallas. And Mason Cole, a member of their offensive line, is gone as well. So this is a team with a very strong foundation. I mean, look, especially offensively, you've got Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. They're still there. And a lot of the issues that they've had for years are still there too. Their offensive line still sucks. So offensively, schematically, it's going to look different, but a lot of the players are the same. On defense, you begin to see some of those changes. You know, you're adding in Z to go along with Hunter to give you a very formidable pass rush, assuming health, which both of them have struggled with at times in the past. You add in Harrison Phillips to try to beef up your defensive front. That's a change, but it still isn't defensive tackle room with a lot of pass rush capability. Okay. Moving on to the linebacking core, you still have Eric Kendricks. Been one of the better inside linebackers in the league for a long time. And now you're going to pair the very underrated Jordan Hicks with him. Gives them the strength there. Moving on to the secondary, Xavier Woods out. But they did retain Patrick Peterson, who showed flashes of his old self last year. But for the most part, you know, those abilities kind of came and went. And ultimately, the secondary there is still a really big question. And not to mention the fact that the defense has been shifting to the 4-3 that they've run forever and are switching to a 3-4 now with Pettin, Mike Smith, and the other litany of defensive coaches that they have. This is a team in flux. They're going from a 4-3 defense to a 3-4, and that doesn't mean the same thing defensively that it did years ago because teams play so much nickel now. I mean, if you went back to the 80s, a switch from 4-3 to 3-4 would be this monumental shift. But now a lot of teams use nickel as their base package anyway. So it still is a change, not what it used to be, but still a big change. And the moves that they made in free agency actually helped to show that. Harrison Phillips, Jordan Hicks, a traditional 3-4 inside backer. Z as an edge who has a lot of experience in 3-4 from Baltimore and Green Bay. So you see this change happening to get them to a 3-4 defense. But this is game one in that 3-4 defense. The only thing that I would caution is we remember what Mike Pettin was like in year one in Green Bay. The defense made strides. And Minnesota's defense was already, with Zimmer, relatively formidable. Are they going to make those similar year one strides with Pettin that Green Bay did? Or are we going to see the more traditional team in flux? We'll find out. But that really recaps Minnesota's offseason. It's a time of change in Minnesota as they're looking to upend Green Bay. Going on to the 5 things that I'm looking for. Number 1, can Green Bay stop Dalvin Cook? I know there's going to be a ton of concern about Justin Jefferson in the Viking passing game, but honestly, I'm not as worried about it. The Packers have Jair back, Razul, Stokes, their safeties. I'm not as worried about the passing attack of the Vikings, even though it's as good. Dalvin Cook, we have seen absolutely torch the Packers in the past, when they've had full personnel on defense, no less. But looking back to last year's matchups, in Game 1 last year where Minnesota won, Dalvin Cook wound up with 25 touches for 115 yards and 1 touchdown. In Game 2, an absolute 37-10 dismantling by Green Bay, Dalvin Cook wound up with 9 carries for 13 yards. Now that was, I believe it was week 16. Things had already very much been decided. So sometimes those stats really have to be taken with a grain of salt. But still, last year it showed that they could, at the end of the season, stop Dalvin Cook. But historically, Dalvin Cook has done incredibly well against Green Bay. Will Green Bay's refined defensive front actually shut him down? This is an excellent test for Green Bay's front right off the bat to get the season started. We will find out. Number 2, I'm going to be watching the trenches. Does the Viking O-line stand a chance in hell against this Packers defensive front? Probably not. But at the same time, the Packers offensive line health will help to dictate how this game goes for the Packers offense. Going against that revamped defensive front with Hunter and Z. And Phillips in the middle, who isn't a tremendous pass rusher, but nonetheless, still someone you have to account for, still an upgrade for Minnesota. So, the trenches, I think, are going to have a very large say in how this game goes. Green Bay, at times last year, got very stagnant running the ball against Minnesota. And we know if Elgton Jenkins is back, of course that's going to help. If David Bakhtiari's back, even better. If neither one is back, are we going to see Green Bay go to a lot more spread offense like they did at times last year? To not necessarily reinforce the trenches, but encourage Rodgers to get the ball out lightning fast. Because that's what they did last year. Oftentimes they didn't beef up the tackles, except for at times with Yash, but oftentimes they didn't. Instead, they would go 5 wide like it was McCarthy ball. The trenches will help dictate this game, and it's going to be an interesting match. Both of these teams' defensive fronts are very strong. The Minnesota offensive line is very questionable. The Green Bay offensive line is very decrepit at the moment. But if they're healthy, they're very, very good. We will see. Jury's out. Number 3, I'm excited to see all the Packer faces that now are wearing purple. Like Zadarius Smith, Chandon Sullivan, Mike Smith, Mike Pettin. Hell, I'm in it for the drama of the post-game handshakes. What's going to happen with Rodgers and Z at midfield? Is Z just going to walk up and punch him? Who's going to hug Z after all the crap he said this week? Anybody? Or are they just going to act like they don't know him, just like he said? What's going to happen between Pettin and LaFleur? Is Pettin even going to go down to midfield, or is he going to sit up in a box? One thing I do think we can bank on is we will see a very hearty embrace between Rashawn Gary and Mike Smith. Those two seem to have a very real and genuine bond in their time in Green Bay. I think no matter what, we'll see that. But all these other ones, I'm excited to see. It should be interesting. Number 4, I'm looking at special teams. Yeah, special teams. I think the Packers are going to kick it better. Mason's back. Operation should be better. Pat O'Donnell should punt well. But holy buckets, coverage. The Vikings have good returners. Jalen Reagor, who they just got in the trade with Philadelphia. You know, a lot of people laughed at that trade and said it's completely meaningless. But even if Reagor doesn't contribute a ton as a receiver, he's still a pretty decent punt returner. Last year, he had 7.3 yards per attempt on every punt that he returned for Philly. I mean, that's no joke. And we've seen him in the past from highlights take things to the house for Philly. Again, that's no joke. Even if the guy can't run routes and catch, if he's a punt returner, he's still big, fast, strong. So that could be a test right off the bat. Again, on the flip side, kick returning. They've got a good kick returner in Ken Nwangwu. I mean, last year, he had 32.2 yards per attempt on kick returns. He returned 2 of them for touchdowns. It was only 18 returns, but still, he took back 2 of them for touchdowns. 32 yards per attempt. The Vikings are going to be good at returning the ball. The Packers are very, very bad at covering returns. Like, really bad. Are they still going to be really bad? The whole Rich Bisaccia makeover starts on Sunday. And if they can shut down these 2 for Minnesota, we will consider that a very much step in the right direction. If they give up tons of yards to these 2, it may be status quo. It may be not indicative. It may be status unknown. I know I'm going to be watching. Maybe closing my eyes and crying a little bit, but I'm going to be watching. And then number 5. The Packers' passing attack. If Lazard is out, what happens? I mean, Sammy Watkins, he should be his regular week 1 self, right? He should go off. I think he does like 400 yards and 6 touchdowns every week 1, right? It's a slight exaggeration, but Sammy Watkins does always seem to ball out in week 1 for reasons no one understands. So Sammy Watkins, Randall Cobb. Even in addition to who's going to catch the ball, how is the overall protection going to be, like we talked about with the offensive line? What kind of impact is Bobby Tonyan going to make in his return? We know that Rodgers and Tonyan have a very good connection. Are we going to see that in the red zone right away? How involved is Aaron Jones going to be as a receiver? So many questions with this Packers passing attack. I mean, coming into the season with Lazard, we had 1,000 questions about what this mosaic passing attack is going to look like. And now you take Lazard out. Lazard, arguably the most consistent, reliable of the bunch. You take him out. What does it look like now? I don't know. I'm not sure they completely know right now. Dobbs and Watson, we're going to see them a bunch. I think with Lazard out, their job responsibilities just increased quite a bit for their first career game. They do. So after saying these 5 things, the things that I'm looking forward to most, ooh, baby, it's time. Sunday, 3:25 in Minnesota. I am so excited to get this season rolling. So excited to get this season rolling. I can't wait to find out the answers to these 5 questions. Whew. It's time. It's time. We've been waiting too frickin' long for this. So, before I reveal my overall final score prediction, please, just one reminder, hit like, hit share, hit subscribe, get this video out there. Follow me on Twitter, @JohnDelray would be my handle. That's @JohnDelray. Follow me on Twitter. Let's have some discussions there. Had a couple great discussions earlier today, including one with Wisco Fanatics, yesterday's giveaway winner. Have been really enjoyed talking to more people on Twitter. So find my handle, find me on Twitter. Let's talk Packers. Now in terms of final score prediction. Green Bay Packers coming out on top against the Minnesota Vikings with a final score of 27-21. Yes, only one rushing touchdown, 2 passing touchdowns, and 2 Mason Crosby field goals make this a 27-21 affair. So, with all that, I'll see you on Sunday. Have yourself a great weekend. Try not to get so excited. Contain yourself until 3:25 Sunday. But you go have an absolutely great day. Go Pack Go.